Welcome to another episode of Golden Nuggets, the Situation Zoom. And today's episode is going to be all about responsible landlordship. I can't claim that. I heard it on a radio show the other day. There was an interview and it said, we're going to talk about responsible landlordship. And I was like, I will talk about responsible landlordship too. Nina, I reached out to you immediately because I was like, she's the GM of Blue Ground. And I was like, they must be having a nightmare. And then she was like, oh, no, I'm not there anymore. I'm an advisor. I'm an independent advisor now, which is even better. So you can give us a kind of reflective view and also some advice. Jake, who is no stranger to Golden Nuggets, I was like, right, my go-to for long-term leasing and a little bit of property management, perhaps. And he'll tell us about the activity, what's happening, what landlords are doing, what tenants are doing. And Simon Hans, who is the CEO and co-founder of Smart Host Dubai, which is a Airbnb holiday homes company, which we all thought were going to be the first to get hit. But there's opportunity in every problem. So we're going to run through how you guys have navigated it. But let's start off by talking about the first 8 weeks. The first shock to the system was that first week. Let's start with you, Jake.
I think shock is definitely the right word. Personally, it was, I think all of us in this call are from places that are not used to that kind of thing. So it was definitely an initial shock personally. However, from a business point of view, the leads just stopped overnight. And in that initial kind of February 28th, we saw that there was a 80% drop in those tenant lead numbers that have come through. They have been increasing, which is great news, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. But from a business aspect, it was kind of just, what do we do? Where are we going? And yeah, it was shock, I think is the word to best sum that up.
And Simon, what about you? Because, my initial thought would have been like, okay, all holiday homes are going to switch to long-term rental. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I suppose that's fair to say. I think just to follow Jake's sentiment as well, it was very much a shock, sort of February 28th, wasn't it? I think for most people, what's happening and then what is going to happen. That was probably the first things in our minds. Yeah, we've had those challenging times, those challenging conversations with landlords, good conversations, but challenging as you'd expect. And the portfolio that we run and operate has been quite resolute. And we'll come on to strategies and revenue opportunities that we're currently exploring, currently executing. But yeah, definitely shock. February the 28th onwards, the first 4 weeks behaved in a certain way. And then the second 4 weeks of this sort of 8 to 10 week run that we've experienced, it's kind of evolved, doesn't it? I think it's always sort of shock and then sort of fear and concern, and then it kind of settles down a little bit. So, we're in a bit of a holding pattern, I think would be fair to say at the minute as of today. But, day one, week one of this whole scenario 8 weeks ago was, shocking.
And Nina, where the rent-to-rent model is different, you as an operator would be the one, well, you've already paid in advance, perhaps for the year, or you've got the checks out there for, you've got so it's, the rent is paid. As far as your land concerned, I'm fine, but how do you then minimize your losses?
Yeah, I think that's a definitely good question. And if you are in the rent-to-rent model, I think you need to have your model right and your portfolio right. And what do I mean by this? In terms of portfolio, right, you need to be very selective and very responsive to the market. And I think Blue Ground, due to its international exposure and several crises that we have been through, being the COVID and also the postmass of the SVB, the fall of a Silicon Valley bank, right, which impacted a lot of startups around the world. We have done a lot of cleanup of the house, meaning that along with how the market goes and, for example, increase of the rents in the last 3 years in Dubai, right, we have adjusted a lot and we fine-tune exactly what is our portfolio in terms of bedrooms, neighborhoods, and so on and so forth, which actually works, right? And whatever doesn't work needs to be taken out right away because you are losing money right there. And I think the second part is it's also the customer, right? So the customer is also very particular for the Blue Grounds, right? We are not after this holiday home typical tourist, right? We are actually looking for 1 month plus rentals. And why is that, right? Because you want to increase the duration of your stay so you are covered both for high and for the low seasons, right? You might not go for the highest rent during the season, right? But we go for the occupancy and we go for the longer term deals. And so there, right, you're usually looking into the business customers here on the project, consultants, lawyers, people relocating and wanted to check out different neighborhoods. And actually through that, we found a lot of the customers who from short-term renters from us became actually someone who would stay with us for years, both in Dubai, but also in the other markets, right? So this is a kind of a customer who just doesn't want to deal with the landlords, doesn't want to deal with the utilities, and want to have kind of easy approach to renting.
Because new
But
opportunities
yeah,
do occur. And one thing that we definitely picked up on during the pandemic, that the holiday homes division, I was at Driven Properties at the time. I know that the holiday homes department ended up getting a lot of inquiries from people that actually just needed somewhere to work, because that's when we all started working from home. But if you're living in an apartment and you've got kids and you've got, or your partner's also working from home, that became another opportunity where people are like, hold on, let me rent another place. And that can be my office technically. Simon, have you seen any
Yeah.
new type of customer profile emerging?
We've seen there's different customer profiles for different units. Your sort of Dubai Hills, Dubai Creek, JVC, Sports City, Motor City. They're more residents that are booking those units that are looking for flexible accommodation, and in some cases, sort of people just moving to Dubai. Just finding their feet. So those areas have largely been relatively unaffected over the last 8 weeks. The day rates have reduced. Yes, and we'll come on to day rates and revenue. But the customer profile, yes, it's shifted. I think people are staying longer once they're in it and they're comfortable. That's really crucial, that point. So once clients find a space for 3 to 5 days, 7 days, the amount of extensions that we're undertaking at the moment, I can't tell you. The list is endless, and it's great for us because we've already got the client in-house. It's an easy win. And we love hosting people, and that's what we do. We're hospitality professionals as well as being in the real estate industry. So, lots of clients that we already have are extending weeks at a time and then turning into monthly, which is really what our strategy is currently now. The conflict of the last 8 weeks and ongoing. We have different revenue strategies, and during the summer period, typically for short-term rentals, we need monthly clients to protect the P&L and protect the overall rental yield for landlords. With what's gone on in the region, that's just brought that forward. So we would normally do the summer sort of strategy around April, May time and run that till September. Monthly clients paying a fixed amount, and you've got somebody from 1 to 6 months in your unit, solid. Because the platform and the portals work really, really well September through the high season. The day rates are great. You make lots of revenue, and it just takes care of itself. But where you earn your money in short-term rentals is by protecting all of that hard work during the high season.
I think we're seeing that into the long-term market as well, because when the agents are qualifying the prospective tenants that are coming through, they're not having so much of a guaranteed move date anymore. There's a lot more kind of flexibility. And when the agents are asking, when is it your current contract is ending? And they're just saying, we're in a short-term accommodation at the moment, so it can be flexible. We've already extended, we can continue extending. And there's just that bit of hesitance in the market because they don't have a definite date of when they need to be out of that accommodation. We're getting a lot of landlords that want to rent out their own home because it is, maybe they've got a really high mortgage on it and they want to kind of go into something a little bit less. We're seeing quite a few people that are remortgaging so that they can get the cash out, and then they're putting a tenant in the property and then they're renting something a lot smaller because obviously, as Simon was saying, that they've already gone on to those summer rates. So it is a lot cheaper. So people can rent out their property and get a higher rent for it, and then they can stay somewhere else where they're able to save money themselves. But the rest of the tenant profiles, really, it's the same. It's just that people have got less confirmed dates. I think before where, the short-term market was super busy and super strong. And if you tried to extend, you couldn't extend. That people had those definite dates of, I need to find my long-term home before 1st of May. Whereas now it's, I'm currently there until the 1st, but I can extend if I need to, if I don't find the right place, la, 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 la. So that's where the hesitancy, I think, is coming from on the tenant aspect.
And Simon, you mentioned some areas that are performing particularly well.
Yeah.
Are there any areas that are performing particularly badly?
JBR, I have to say. JBR is a bit tough for us. Marina seems to be quite tough. Email beachfront. So anything sort of water facing, which you would kind of think is a tourist.
Anything Strait of Hormuz facing?
Yeah. anything near the Palm Jumeirah, the crown jewel of Dubai. Yeah, I think anything sort of those typical sort of what you'd expect, what you'd think is a tourist area. You know, your Palm Jumeirahs, your marinas not so much, but definitely JBR, Emaar Beachfront. I mean, the road's a bit of a challenge to get on Emaar Beachfront anyway at the best of times. Does that make that less desirable? I don't know. But yeah, those sorts of areas are quite challenging, and I think Dubai Creek really has held pretty good for us. I can't speak for others, but I can only speak on our portfolio.
From what I discussed with the different operators on the market, definitely the typical tourist. I would add to this, I think Marina is tourist slash extremely high supply of the holiday homes, right? I think any of the area which had a really high supply, or maybe coming high supply, for example, in the business bay in the last few years, you had so many deliveries. A lot of those went to the holiday homes, right? So whenever you either will have the crash of occupancy or a bigger decrease on the price. Otherwise, you are not able to rent. I have looked at the data in terms of the total number of the units. I think in the peak in Dubai, there were around 45,000 units rented through the holiday homes, right? There is this global platform called AirDNA that publishes this data. And currently we are at 27,000 units. Just to kind of calibrate, before pandemic in Dubai, there were around 20,000 units. And after pandemic, this number increased significantly due to a lot of incoming, both tourists and residents. And it went up to the 45,000 at some point, right? So it tells you a lot, right? So it means that these are either the landlords pulling out their units from the short term, right? Because they're not seeing the income, or also the companies who are closing up. Because there was so much competition on the market coming up to that, there were a lot of newcomers who either went for a lease sublease model because they said, okay, I can do that, or they were on the revenue sharing model, but they were offering 3 to 6 months no fees to the landlord, meaning that they were not getting commission. And all of these people are out of business, right? Because if you're already not getting commission and you don't have any income coming in, how are you going to pay your staff? How are you going to pay any of the costs that you can have fixed or variable? Definitely a lot of impacted operators, I would say, in all of the areas, but some more, let's say, impacted than others, with a focus on the tourism, right? Because you had 4 to 6 weeks no incoming tourism, and we are still there, right? Emirates operates on 60% capacity of the airplanes. Not all of them are, of course, coming back full, not all of them with the tourists. You would have several resilient segments, which are usually either the region, so the GCC or Middle East in general. They would be, let's say, more prone to come to Dubai because they know about how safe the country is, and they are also less risk averse considering the history, or the relatives and friends of the people who are already in Dubai. These are still kind of the segments that will be resilient. Everyone else will be postponing their travel until a little bit later.
Simon, what you were saying matches perfectly with what we're seeing in the long-term rent market, because our listings have gone through the roof, especially in those waterfront communities. And I think, like Nina was saying, a lot of people are coming off short term, and what are they doing with it? I think a lot of them are going on to long term. We're getting a lot of owners that are coming to us saying, oh, we want to do 6-month contracts. Would we only want to do a 6-month contract because then when the season starts again, we want to be able to kick them out. We don't want an Ajari on it because then we're bound by all the Ajari laws. But massively an increase in waterfront, JBR, marina, all of these kind of areas. We're seeing a huge uptake in long-term listings coming on the market.
6-month gigs to sort of maybe come back to short-term rentals.
Some of them,
September
yes.
onwards,
So
yeah.
normally we don't really get any of that in a, pre-28 situation. It was
Normal
very
market.
rare that we'd get owners that say, oh yeah, I only want to rent it for 6 months. Whereas now we're getting it quite common where owners are saying, yeah, I do it on short term. However, obviously I'm not getting anything at the moment, so I'll give it to you for 6 months. It's like, that's not how we work in long term. You can't give it to me on certain dates.
These are your opportunistic landlords, what I call. We used to have those in Blue Ground who would switch between fixed rent and revenue share because they thought that one or the other they can get much higher incomes.
Yeah, and
We
the issue is
definitely have some of those.
when we publish these listings, because we did a couple and now I've said no more, because we publish it at a 6-month price where, they have their own DTCM, so they can do their own contract, and we're purely just trying to get them a tenant for 6 months. However, because the price is half the price of a yearly, the leads was going through the roof because people were seeing it as a 1-bedroom in the marina for 40,000 dirhams in a nice building. And they was like, great, this is a great price for the year. Which just brought us so many inquiries, and it was just too much of a headache to deal with. So yeah, we're just now it's not worth doing it for us.
The reason why you got so many inquiries, and we talked about it in episode 2 of the Situation Zoom, was affordability. People are tightening their belts. So if they see a one bed in Marina come up for, how much did you say it was? 45?
40K for
Yeah.
6 months.
Coming off the back of a period, long period, where landlords have had some real pricing power and have been able to stick firm to not just their long-term rates, but also short-term rates. Are we seeing that balance shifting over to tenants? We'll definitely want to start with you, Jake. What are your landlords doing? Are they holding firm? Are they giving discounts? Are they giving rent-free periods? What's the strategy?
So we're not seeing the rent-free period. I think during the pandemic, we saw that a lot. We saw a lot of the 13 months for the price of 12. We haven't seen that again this time around. And I think that it just goes and gives the market credibility because we are not there. Whether we get there in a couple of months with the amount of stock that's coming to the market, maybe. But as of right now, we're not. At the beginning, landlords was very much holding firm on their prices. Some landlords still are holding firm on their prices 2 months later. However, pretty quickly from the ceasefire, I think when that was announced, that was when we saw a real shift in prices and owners was like, right, okay, because they saw the supply coming to the market and there was so much that was coming in. And before where you'd have maybe 12 units available in your building, there was now 30, 40 listings on Property Finder and Bayou. And it was like, if you are not going to be the most competitively priced, it's going to sit there vacant. So I think we've seen that shift and it is starting more and more. Our price reductions have never been as high as what they are. And we track that data on a weekly basis. And every single week, the price reductions are increasing. And that's not just 1,000 dirhams off the price. We only track it if it's more than 5% from the overall price. And those numbers are keep on increasing and increasing week on week. I was speaking to one of the agents this morning and he was saying that he's got a unit in the address, which now the price is down to 170. And he rented one out in January, exactly the same unit, just a couple of floors different for 250. And the issue that he's having is that he's got other buildings that are close to the address in downtown that are also still at 170 for their 2-bed. And he's like, I don't know what to say to the landlord because when the tenant sees that they can get a normal building in downtown versus the address, obviously they're going to go for an address at 170. But those landlords in the normal buildings are like, no, I want to stick to my price. I'm still going for 170. And unfortunately, if they're going to do that, their unit is just going to stay on the market and they're going to have a huge void period.
What about you, Simon? What kind of percentage drops are you seeing across your portfolio?
Yeah, similar to what Jake just said there. Really, it depends on location, obviously, the unit type, the building. It's all very, very specific. You know, day rates are like long let, very, very sensitive. If you price the unit correctly, you are busy. If it's overpriced, you're just not busy at all. So the pricing on short-term rentals is absolutely crucial to the occupancy. And it's also about not underselling it. You know, certain areas you can see 10, 20% drop. Certain areas are certainly higher, you know, maybe even 30 to 40% on the day rates. You know, our revenue strategy, like I mentioned before, is monthlies through the summer. 60% of our portfolio as of this morning is on monthlies. So 40% of my units, I need to go and get, you know, short-term rentals. But yeah, we've seen sort of 10 to 20% in certain areas, 30 to 40 in other areas. But landlords have been, by and large, providing you're honest and upfront. And I've had several conversations with all landlords. They're receptive to it because they either live here or they live in the region. And even if they're not living in the region, they're aware of the market conditions. And whilst it's an investment, they're not short-term investors. They're seasoned investors here for a long period. So whilst that we'll see some short-term pain in the market, I think come September onwards, it might be a different outlook, pending on what happens with the region and political stuff.
Nina, you've got access to the data, I'm guessing, from AirDNA. What kind of drops are you seeing when it comes to the average nightly rates?
I think they are much higher, especially for the touristic areas. I think Simon's landlord should be extremely happy because his drops were not that high, right? So let's go maybe area by areas. In downtown, you are currently seeing the average rate at 260 dirhams per night. Usually you would expect during the low season it to be around 400 and on an average annual over 500. So we're talking about 50 or more % drop. On the city walk, which usually is much more expensive than downtown, probably 20-30% more expensive, we are looking at 250 dirhams per night, so probably around 60% drop. Similar for DIFC. which was extremely affected due to the fact that there are so many American companies have the headquarters there and they had very high alerts. In the Palm, the current nightly rate is 284 dirhams. I would say that for the Palm, I don't have before the numbers because we don't have the portfolio there, but I would expect that it is 1/3 probably of what the Palm apartments would go for. In GLT, we see 139, also over 50% decrease, right? So I think that we have very, very high decrease, and it's a combination factor, right? So you have the low season coming up, and on top of you also do not have the tourists, the business visitors, which also used to have a big share, right? Because some of the events have been cancelled or postponed to the later date in autumn. So you have a cumulative effect of several issues here.
I think as well, there's a big drop in how many new people are moving here, because obviously when you first move here, a lot of the time you go into short term. Most people will get somewhere for a month or a couple of months while they're going through the Emirates ID process. And with that number declining so much at the moment as well, it's everything has been affected. All of the aspects of that short term model is being affected right now.
Just on the monthly rates as well. So we've just done 2 JBC studios at 5.5 for the next 4 months. Now they would probably have rented for 6.5 monthly. It's probably fair to say. So gives you an idea of sort of 20, 25 points lower.
I kind of see like a merging of the two models to somewhat. Like you're getting long-term tenants that want flexibility. Could we be on to something here as a kind of maturing marketplace? Everyone's tired of paying rent up front for the year or even quarterly. And landlords have been in a position to demand that because they've been in control. But now where the power balance is shifting, could we see more monthly payments being the norm? For me, I don't really enjoy personal admin or paying bills. I'd love to just pay a certain amount each month and forget about it, not have to log into my DWA or not have to log into pay my chiller. So could there be like some kind of new market emerging?
I think that's probably fair to say. And I think if you look at everywhere else in Europe, mostly, they pay monthly. By and large, especially in the UK, we're used to kind of paying monthly rents. And if we're going to have, and hopefully attract more UK professionals to Dubai, then something's going to have to shift, I think. The real estate sales market, it's now become a buyer's market. I think it's probably fair to say over the last 8 to 12 weeks. And I think the real estate residential, rental market is going in the same direction in terms of a renter's market versus a landlord sort of saying, I want X amount per day on day rates. I want X amount per annum for an Ajari contract. And these are my terms. If you don't want it, it stays empty. Or somebody else will take it. I think monthly payments, this sort of period has maybe shifted the mindset more so. And maybe moving forward, it might be that the check model, which has been around for a long, long time, I think landlords are sort of open to sort of relaxing those sort of expectations, 1 check, 2 checks, and 4 checks, and so on. I think also the renter wants flexible payments. They want to manage their cash flow. If you're first coming to Dubai and you've got to pay, 60, 80, 100,000 dirhams on rent, furniture, all of your DWA deposits and everything else, it's a big expense. And it doesn't set people up for success. When they come here, the biggest thing for Dubai is come here, work hard, but have a foundation for success. And that's about cash flow, surely. And by having those monthly checks relaxed, those monthly payments relaxed, I think that will support that and encourage more people to move and live here longer term. So I think flexible payments will continue in the short term. I wouldn't be surprised if it continues medium to long term and the whole model maybe does shift over time to monthly payments ongoing.
I think we're definitely seeing that already. I mean, I was having a conversation with Walid, the founder of Keeper, which has been very much in the news over the last kind of 12 months in terms of their model of monthly payments. So it's still that long-term contract, but because people want that flexibility, people don't have the disposable income anymore that they used to have where they can afford to pay all that money out in one payment for their rent, and they want to be able to pay monthly. Like Simon said, it's the same everywhere in Europe. Nowhere else in the world do you pay up front for a full year and that's it, the money's just gone. and they are coming to the market very soon. And we are a very proud partner with Keeper and Property Finder that are going to be involved in this pilot that they're doing, where they're going to offer that monthly payments. We all know across Dubai, it's one of the biggest things that landlords hate paying fees. They want all that money. So the ones that don't like doing the short term or the property management, this is a perfect solution for them because they still get their money in 2 checks, is how it will be paid to them through Keeper. However, the tenant gets to pay monthly, and it's the tenant, the one that is then paying the service fee of being able to have the luxury of doing so. The landlord is still getting, their whole rent in those 2 payments, and Keeper is taking all of that responsibility on. So I think we are definitely going to see a shift in the market. And I think whenever there is something that affects everybody, like the situation has, people want to be more kind of be careful with their cash. They don't want to be splashing it everywhere. I think we've all looked at our finances over the last 8 weeks and thought, right, is this a need? Is this a mandatory? Is it a privilege? Is it a luxury? I definitely have. And I think definitely if you've got families, you've got children, then you're going to have done exactly the same. So I agree. I think we're going to see a change in the market. Owners are going to need to be more flexible in terms of the payments if they want that long-term model to continue. Dubai is so advanced in every single way, but we still use those paper checks in long-term rent. And they are coming up with new initiatives, especially with Keeper, in terms of how we can get away from checks and stop using them because they are unreliable. We know what the banks are like when it comes to the signature not being exactly right or any little bit of wording. So I think we are going to see that change definitely over the next maybe 6 to 12 months in terms of the regulations for long term from the DLD as well.
And you'll be pleased to know Waleed from Keeper is going to be stepping into the Situation Zoom. So he'll tell us a bit
Love
more
that.
about what's going on in that world. Yeah, of course.
Sorry,
I've got a
Waleed, if you're
roster.
watching, I've just gave your speech away.
Right,
But
you
I
didn't
think the
butcher it.
model and regulations would need to adjust to Dubai because landlords love receiving their checks in advance and, deposit and even receive the interest rate on it. I think now they'll offer more flexibility. So 3-4 checks at no extra price, because over the last 3 years, this would happen. If your price was 120 for 1 check, if you wanted more checks, that the landlord say, okay, it's 125. So this for sure will be gone. But we need to arrive to a model where the landlord either has more security assurance on the financial situation of the tenant, because the difference with Europe is also there are more checks there. Very often you have some also bank assurances of 3+3, right? So you'll have the 3-month deposits plus 3 extra first months. 3 months paid in advance, where you're just signing new contract. The contracts are also much longer, so you have more security from the landlord. And also in Dubai at the moment, it is quite long to get the tenant out, even if they're not paying. So it takes you 3-4 months if you're lucky. If not, it's 6. So there needs to be some adjustments for this model of monthly payments to work, right? Because right now, even in the Keeper model, it is an extra expense for the tenant. They're still at the moment paying more. And there need to be some structural changes for this model to actually work for all of the parties, because you're taking some of the assurance from the landlord in terms of a check, and you're taking it away, but don't give anything else in return.
I think it's more of a kind of familiarity and habit for landlords rather than anything, because a couple of years ago, bounce checks became decriminalized. It's now just a civil matter. But landlords like to have that kind of, this is their only physical assurance. And as you mentioned, in Europe or other cities where you're paying monthly, it's only because, or it's subject to approval based on a credit report, employment history, salary confirmation, previous landlord reference. So maybe that's another opportunity in the region, a business opportunity for a referencing agency, that's going to do all these checks. Because for now, it's very much we just need your Emirates ID and checks.
Yeah.
That's it. There's no kind of landlord history or employment checks. And with affordability becoming an issue or getting squeezed, landlords do need to start making a call on which kind of tenant is safe for me to accept. Rakesh mentioned it in episode 2, where he said you've got to be conscious which industry your tenant is coming from, because if it is an industry that has experienced or maybe yet to experience severe redundancies or job losses, then you might be better off taking a lower rent offer from someone in a more stable industry.
We don't have references here, and it blows my mind that there is no checks done. And when landlords do ask, because occasionally they will ask for a bank statement of the tenant, And the tenants are like, no, like, we don't give bank statements here. Like, you're not having my bank. Whereas most places around the world, it's a very common ask. So again, it's where we're so far forward in so many aspects, but then so far back in other aspects as well.
It's like customer profiling, isn't it? And having like a history of booking data, but also looking at the habits and behavioral traits of your clients. And then also looking at, employment history and stuff. Well, we're quite used to in the UK sort of references, but also guarantors, for example, to come on to that point, guarantors, or do you have bigger deposits to mitigate maybe if the default ever did happen, by having bigger deposits, maybe that mitigates that part of it.
It's exciting because it is an opportunity to find a solution for deposits that will be better than the European solution. As a market is maturing, we've also got the option of saying, right, we're going to do that, but we're going to do it way better. So I'm quite excited to see the possibilities. I want to come back to pricing because I think this is a really important one for anyone listening, because agents that might be listening are going to need to know how we're pricing. We kind of need to know how to recommend options to our investors. So they're going to be asking you, should I do holiday homes or should I do long-term rent? Should I keep it empty? Obviously, you're never going to be saying keep it empty, but Nina, as an expert and an advisor on pricing, how do you, and then I'm going to come to you, Jake, on how to price rental property right now. What tools do you recommend everyone to look at? How do you advise people to arrive at a nightly rate?
Yeah. I think so. The nightly rate would be a combination of several things, right? And I think it also depends on the model that the company is looking at, right? If you're rent to rent, so you need to look obviously into your costs. So you'll probably want to have your target margins, right? Target profitability that you have in mind. Look in all the costs, and please don't forget about the indirect costs of marketing, because people usually don't price this into your daily rates.
And Airbnb's increased their prices. Tell us about that.
So yeah, Airbnb and in general, OTAs have the cost somewhere in 15%, some even higher, right? And they started at 3%. If you're looking at the classifiers like Property Finder by Youth, these also have been increasing about 20% on their annual contract. So promoting your properties is very expensive if you don't have any direct brand or direct booking through your own platform. So all of this cost needs to go into consideration when you go into the nightly rate. And then it's not an only one, right? So I think there are several things you need to consider. So you have, of course, the seasonality. And so you adjust to the seasonality. And as we know, the demand here is very much elastic, right? So whenever you drop the price, then you have the incoming bookings, right? And you need to kind of hit the sweet spot that it's not too high, that you get the demand, and not too low, so you don't leave money on the table. And then there is other things that beyond the seasonality that you need to consider. You need to consider your target customer. Of course, you need to consider the location while you are including this. And actually, a very good radar for many of the companies is just to look at your comparable hotel in the area, because these are also who you are competing. You have the apartment hotels, you have the hotels, and these are kind of the rate that you would want to end up is with a good professionally managed Airbnb. When it comes to the long term, I think we also have a lot of tools, right? We have now a lot of data on the classifieds about what are the transactions are going on, right? So there is not a listing price, but actually the recent transactions that are closed. This is a very granular data. You can look your specific building, you can look up the floor, the bedroom, and kind of direct yourself there and see where you stand right now to price your unit correctly, not to lose out on the incoming leads.
And now I want to move to outlook, like of course, none of us have a crystal ball, but I'm sure we've considered what the next 3 to 6 months is going to look like. Jake, what are your predictions? How are you advising your landlords? And then what are you saying to tenants?
It's going to depend on agencies. I mean, we are having one of our best months in leasing ever on record at England Volkers because we have been so quick off the mark. I know it's crazy. Well, I was literally looking at the figures this morning. I'm like, how, considering March was such a flop, and at the end of March going into April, I was thinking, how much longer can I sustain this? Like, I've got a lot of costs. And for me, my biggest cost is marketing, because the portals, as Nina was saying, are an absolute fortune right now. And trying to get, if you want to put a premium listing on something, I'm making no money on a lot of my listings by the time we paid the agent. But I think we are doing well because I was very quick off the mark in terms of predicting with my crystal ball. So maybe I have got one. That we need to start dropping those prices because it was a very quick, apparent thing that the hospitality, the tourist sector was taking a big hit. And what usually happens, like the same as COVID, is that more stock is going to come for the long term market. So the best thing you can do in these situations is make sure that you are the front of the pack rather than being at the back and just waiting for all the other agents to do stuff and then you go ahead and join that party. So we was really quick on pushing those prices down and had honest conversations with our landlords in terms of, look, there's a lot of stock coming. If you want to get your unit rented, we need to reduce the price now, because if you don't, your unit is going to sit on the market for a couple of months and you're then going to reduce the price, and you've now had this 2-month void period. So it's better off that we reduce it now. We get somebody in the apartment, and at least you've got that money that you're going to get in 2 months anyway. So I think my predictions going forward for the next kind of 3 to 6 months is that we're going to see that continue. I think we're going to see those prices keep on cooling. We're going to see a lot more stock coming to the market, especially if, you know, the short term or the rent to rent schemes are slowing down somewhat, especially in certain areas. I think we will probably see that continue up until the end of summer. I think August, I'm still confident with. There's the myth in real estate that during the summer prices go down and everybody thinks they can get a cheap deal. And actually, for me, and I don't know if it's the same in other companies, but August is my busiest month every single year. And everyone's saying that it is the quietest month, and it's not. It's the month that most people move over here, especially for schools, because they're moving in before their schooling. I think the media around the world has really tried to tarnish Dubai and the UAE's reputation because they're very envious of the model that the UAE has had. Obviously, there's a lot of countries that have lost very high paying tax individuals that have come here. We see that all the time. So I think they took any opportunity they could get at taking a bad look on Dubai. And I think it will take a while for that consumer confidence to come back. And it's already bouncing back. You know, we are seeing people are still moving over. It's not like no one is coming. And I think until the end of summer is when we're going to see this kind of ride out. And then from September onwards, would hope that we'll be somewhat back to normality, but with changes, because whenever there is something like this that happens, it brings change. And sometimes good change. And like we've discussed today, I think some of the changes that could come to that market are going to be really beneficial to tenants, to property management companies, to landlords as well, even though it means needing to be more flexible, but having a bit more security there as well. Let's say there's a software update needed on the whole rental process in Dubai.
Jake, if you had one wish, I was
You're not
about
going to
to
see the
sing
rest of the
that.
song.
All right, Jake, if you had one wish, what would it be? Because, you know,
I
look,
think
the UAE is very quick to bring in new changes, switch things up, insert new incentive. If the decision makers are listening, what one change would you like to be brought in the next 3 to 6 months?
I think the best thing for the market would be replacing the check system, having more kind of clarity in terms of that, building a model like we've discussed in terms of having maybe references or something like that that just makes it easier, because everybody's had problems with checks. If you've been a tenant in Dubai, at some point you've had an issue with checks, whether that's you are the receiver of those checks or you're providing the checks. So I think removing that check model altogether and bring us into the 21st century a little bit more.
Even writing the check, like it is.
And I have to do it a lot of the time. Like as I'm an agent, if I see a client go to do it and I'm like, I can't deal with the headache of it going to the landlord, then it getting declined by the bank. So there's tools that you can use as well that literally you can write it word for word. However, it still gets done wrong. So I'm like, okay, give me your checkbook. You will just sign it and I will write it out for you.
Yeah, there was one, I had an experience, a check got returned because they'd spelt 40. Nobody picked up on this. They spelt it FOURTY. And it was like, oh.
Yeah, they
But
are
yeah.
so strict. They are super. When it comes to checks, it's the biggest headache always. My finance are the same. If they think that there's one letter that looks different, they're like, no, you need to get it redone. And I'm like, let's just try it. Let's see if the bank are in a good mood today and they're going to accept it.
All right. What about you, Simon? Outlook, advice, and wish list?
Yeah, Outlook, I think, probably to echo Jake, we're not too far away, are we, in terms of what we're doing? I think the next 3 to 6 months, typically through the summer. Short-term rentals, always a challenging period, as we know. So just, keeping those day rates competitive, keeping the unit busy as best as possible, low day rate, high occupancy, keep the momentum going, keep the reviews going, and then come out of this at the back end of summer. And maybe there's a different picture from September onwards, which is a typical sort of seasonality of short-term rentals anyway, isn't it? So I think just keeping the units busy as best as you can with the right day rates and revenues is important, and that's probably what the outlook looks like. We're into summer now. It's already 42 degrees outside. It's getting warmer again, isn't it? So
Do you think there's going to be a consolidation in the number of operators or the
yeah,
models, or?
I think we've already seen that. I've had various conversations with landlords, and they were on short-term rentals, and the company has basically closed shop. And we're fielding several inquiries on that basis. I will continue to grow. We're fully in Dubai. We fully believe in it, 100%. So, somebody else's unfortunate circumstances, maybe somebody else's win, I suppose. So yeah, I think we're seeing a reduction in operating companies. And therefore it creates opportunities for others, I suppose. Capitalist world, I guess.
And what's on your wish list?
And probably after all of this, a nice holiday, I have to say. Maybe even a day off would be quite pleasant. But what do I wish? I just wish maybe a bit more normality. What we're used to in terms, what is the norm, I suppose, is anybody's opinion. But Dubai was absolutely thriving, wasn't it? And has done for the last 3 to 5 years constantly. Great population growth, great real estate market in terms of, what it was doing and what we were developing and all those things. It'd be quite nice just to get back to a level playing field, I'll call it. I won't call it normal. I'll call it a level playing field for Dubai. Let us get on with it, and we'll just keep thriving and growing this beautiful city that we've been welcomed so much to.
Thank you.
Something like that.
And Nina, I want to get your outlook, but also, as sitting as an advisor, what are you advising your clients? How are you telling them to prepare for the next 3 to 6 months?
Yes, definitely next 3 to 6 months will be challenging, especially if you're in the short-term rentals and in the holiday homes. Again, for the same reasons that we have discussed, I will not repeat them. I would take this opportunity for the companies to actually look into their business model, look into their economics really deeply, and understand if this is still the model that will work and what they can improve, right? There are plenty of things that you can do, from looking at the target, where you're targeting. Is it the right customer? Is your portfolio aligned with who your customer is? Look into the operations. Hospitality and holiday homes is an extremely high operations business. Every time you change the guest, you need to send the cleaning, the maintenance team. You have a lot of costs, right? So look into this. What can be automated? What can be improved? You have a lot of AI tools coming in, so definitely there can be advantage done into this. Look at your warehouse, where you store the items and things like that, right? What can you optimize right now? The third part is the cash flow. Look at your cash flow, what's coming in, what's coming out, right? How can you improve this in terms of renegotiating the terms, right? A simple move of the days from payment from 30 to 60 days can give you a lot of the breathing room in the current climate. And the last one, I would look into the partnership. So think creatively about the revenue and where you can get. What are your channels? Which partnerships can you make? For example, can you partner with the real estate agents to get you some leads on and offer them the stock? I don't know. Maybe right now it doesn't work much because they also have a lot of stock, but maybe there are some synergies that can be made. Can you partner with another operator? For example, Blue Ground has launched about 2 years ago the network called Partner Network, where they onboard other operators and lease their properties on the Blue Ground website, right? Because Blue Ground has a global brand. Majority of their sales come from direct channels, and they have a very particular portfolio, right? So maybe there is a complementarity somewhere. Someone is renting villas, other is renting apartments. Someone has this neighborhood, other has other neighborhood, right? So start thinking a little bit more creatively of where you can get your income coming in. So kind of to sum it up, look at the overall business model and operations that you have. Take this opportunity to actually take stock and improve as much as you can to come out stronger of this.
I don't know, Simon, if you're working
Yeah.
if you've got some kind of partnership with brokerages, but typically,
We do,
and
yeah.
I completely understand it, I get it, and Jake will back me up on this, but
Mm.
there's a real reluctance in our industry to partner with complementary. Oh, I learned that the other day, by the way. There's complementary with an I, complement, or complementary with an E, COMPLE. And complementary is like it matches your business. So going back to that, there's probably a lack of trust when it comes to, well, I don't want to give my clients' details over to Simon, for example, or whoever, because one day Simon might turn around and think, I'm going to set up my own brokerage too. And then I've lost my client. But I do think that this is a really good opportunity for, as you mentioned, Nina, now is the time to kind of like double down. And I think we're going to have like top service providers in, Jake's an expert in leasing. He's running a tight ship over there. But if I said to Jake, start doing holiday homes, he'll be no good at it. Hospitality might not be his thing. So is it now the
I am
time for
starting it. I am.
Are you going to head it though?
Yes, it was in the pipeline for this year. Now it's taken a little bit of a step back, but yeah, property management and short-term rentals will come underneath me. My background is travel, so I love the travel aspects of
You'll
it.
be in
So
it.
yeah,
Okay. Right. We want to come
we
back.
are
We
going to
want
be
to
doing it
see
soon.
Well, let me know if you need some help.
I will. Don't worry.
Setting this
you
I
up.
know
see
an independent advisor.
those hairs, Jake, you're going to lose. You're going to start going very grey very quickly.
I am.
But yeah,
Honestly, no, I don't know if you can
Already.
see, I'm getting grey. I'm 27 and I'm going grey. The hairline is going back. Yeah, not good.
then isn't that, why do it in-house? Why not outsource it so that we're delivering optimum service in every single field? Let's have this debate.
I think we're already collaborating with various brokers, and I think providing you have a clear framework to work with, and you just set the benchmark early. I had a meeting yesterday with a broker and a meeting earlier in the week with another broker, and providing it's really clear and a clear framework, and you just respect the boundaries, and you've got your heads of terms drawn up between you and the broker. It's relatively straightforward. There is always that apprehension from certain brokers, I would think. Yeah, absolutely. But we're short-term rental operators. And if something evolves into something else, then we would always have the professional courtesy to let that person know, just out of mutual respect. And those relationships do actually sometimes evolve. A short-term rental client becomes, a long-let client. That long-let client sometimes becomes a buyer in the market. Landlords that we take on board on short-term rentals, they sometimes look to add to their portfolio and buy more in short-term rentals. So, but providing you've got an initial framework as per the introduction, and that's the agreement, and it's clearly road mapped out, and you've got a fair and equitable document there, I think sharing and, sort of supporting others' businesses is a good thing.
For me, we want to have it as a global brand that is known worldwide. We want to be that one-stop shop. So that's why it's something that we're looking at of having in-house rather than putting out to somebody else, because then we want people to be able to think real estate, think Engel and Volkers, so that they can come to us for everything. And if that landlord does decide that they want to move from short let to long let, or the opposite way around, whatever it may be, that we can offer all of that service in-house because we have the relationship with them. So that's why I would say that we are looking at doing it, and obviously as an additional revenue stream for the business as well.
And gearing up because it will come back. That holiday market will come back. And you want
Exactly.
to be
And it's such
ready
a big
for it.
section. It really is. I mean, there is a lot of money to be made. I mean, I'm sure Simon will agree that there is a lot of money to be made in that short-term market. And yeah, I would love a piece of it. So why would I not do it and set it up here rather than just referring it over to somebody else?
Okay, closing golden nuggets for the Situation Zoom.
Ladies first.
I think that from my perspective, we are very lucky to be and facing this crisis in the UAE. I think that the government has a plan, and as they already showed in the COVID, they had the successful campaigns. Actually, two of them where we will see you soon and ready when you are. And I'm sure that DET has already planned for the end of the summer to reintroduce these campaigns or come up with the new ones where they will relaunch the market. And I think we need to be ready for that, right? And that's why also the operators need to come into this ready and optimize. And yeah, so hopefully after the summer, we'll see this restart.
Jake?
I think now it's a good time for companies to rethink, because when everything is so good, you can just keep spending, and you realize that you're spending so much on things that maybe you don't need. So now, from a company perspective, it's a great time to really knuckle down and make sure you've got what you need and the right quantity of it. I think it's a good time for agents to have a bit of a clear out, because I think we can all agree there's way too many bad agents in the market. So I think all of these things are going to happen naturally over the next few months. And I think the same as what Nina said, I have full faith in the UAE, its government, its leadership, that they have a plan. And like we saw in COVID and the pandemic last time, was that we bounced back, and we bounced back stronger than we ever was before. And that is exactly what I think is going to happen again this time round. Give it until the end of the summer, and we'll look at this and laugh that we was talking about these prices dropping and early summer prices, because we will be in a much better and a much stronger position, because everybody is so united. And that is the one thing that I love about living here. At the start of the conflict, a lot of friends and family was like, are you going to leave? Are you going to come back home? And I'm like, I am home. This is my home. And I love seeing the unity that everybody has here in Dubai. You just don't get that in other parts of the world. So for me, I'm super excited. Yes, it's tough now, but nothing is easy. Anything good worth having is difficult. So I'm excited for the challenging few months. But I will then enjoy that holiday in a few months' time and think, "Phew, we made it, and here we are."
Yeah, just to follow on, I think we've got a tough 3 to 6 months ahead. We're pivoting. I think everybody in real estate is pivoting in some way, and it's going to test our skill set, and that's a good thing. A market that just goes up, is that too easy? A maturing market is going to have peaks and troughs where you're going to have those challenging conversations with buyers, with sellers, with clients, and all those things. So this market is going to test us massively. The best will come through it. And I think, providing you're nimble, you pivot, you continue to dedicate and work and deliver, you will come out of it better at the other end, I think. And with regards to Dubai, it's been truly inspirational. The leadership here, we feel very safe. It's been, a challenging time, as we know, but the city is so resolute. It's shown that without question. We have to remember that the UAE is very young. 1971, I think the UAE was formed. It's a relatively young part of the world, and Dubai being a relatively young city. So I think there's a lot more to come. We're all in Dubai, and we'll be 100% here come September and onwards.
Well, thank you all for joining me and stepping into the Situation Zoom to talk about responsible landlordship. Thank you so much, Simon, Nina, and Jake, as always. Any other conversations you think I should be having right now?
With industry people, or
I'd love you to talk about Ras Al Khaimah and Al Marjan Island. That would be great.
Coming. That's in
because
the pipeline.
real estate have gone absolutely heavy on RAK and Al Marjan Island, and I can see why. With obviously all the infrastructure plans and everything else, the Wynn Casino, understand it, but it'd just be interesting to see what's the mood around RAK and Al Marjan at the moment, and what it looks like for the next 3 to 6 months.
As well. I've heard that Abu Dhabi has
Abu Dhabi, I think, is going to be a main one.
Right? So
yeah, I think with Disney coming, that is going to be a huge thing for Abu Dhabi, but also Dubai as well. I think Disney going to enhance that massively. It'd be really interesting to see that. What I'd love to see on the Situation Ship, is that what you're calling it?
No,
Situation Zoom. Situation Zoom. Sorry, I just go straight to another place. Anyway, what would be really interesting to see is actually some consumers on there and what they feel about the market, having maybe, tenants, maybe buyers, that kind of industry part where we can see it, because all of this is very led by experts within the industry. It'd be interesting to get an outside of industry opinion.
That is a fantastic idea. That is a fantastic
I come up with great ideas, honestly. You need to tell Daniel Haddy he needs to pay me more.
For this one, maybe interesting will be the stake as well, right? Stake or the other, or crypto, right? Those who are going into the crypto, into the distributed ownership. I don't know, Haspi also, right? From their perspective, because they also are like...
Maybe I should tell you who's on my pipeline. We've got Jad from Haspi. I'm doing an episode with Jad from Haspi, with Waleed from Keeper, and the guys from Stake. They're coming up on a show. We've got Kika Pervez from Abu Dhabi. So I'm going to ask her about Abu Dhabi. Who've got coming? Oh my God. I've got Andrew Cummings. I've got Mark Castley. I've got Zayn Khoury. I've got Miles Bush. I've got, Who else? Laura Adams. I've got a guest list. So yes, we will get all of those questions answered or touch on those. But I love the idea of getting a landlord, a
Landlord would be
seller,
great.
Tenant.
buyer, or okay, maybe I do one
Tenant,
with like
buyer, a
okay,
landlord and a tenant, and a buyer and a seller, and kind of
okay,
see what their sentiment on the market is. And
right.
yeah, that'd be quite an
So
interesting watch, I think.
if you are
Short-term
listening to
landlord, I
this,
can get you. No problem.
okay, if you are
Landlord.
listening to this and you want to appear in the Situation Zoom, reach out to me by email, DM, LinkedIn, Instagram, or even on my Instagram. I think it's got my WhatsApp. But yeah, if you're in one of those buckets, you're on the other side and you're not in real estate. We don't want to hear from real estate people on this one. We want to get the consumer. Please reach out. Let's put on a show. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for helping me put on a show. I will see you soon. And
Thank
feel
you so
free to
much.
come back into the Situation Zoom.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Thank you.
Thank you.